Super monkeys are among the most expensive towers to get within the game aside paragons, and also as well the pseudo paragon itself. But when it comes to the axis of supers, you cannot get all tier 5s. You can't get Legends of the Night or True Sun God. Even if you have all the money in the world in a Chimps game, you just simply cannot get them, which is why only the anti-balloon is affordable. So in this case, I want to get the Sun Avatar of the top path, the middle path being the Tech Terror for tier 4 and Dark Champion tier 4 as well. But we cannot afford supers right off the get-go, so that is why we are going to be placing down our wonderful friend here, the Monkey Sub. We cannot get Plasma Blast by round 28 in order to be able to pop lead balloons, so therefore we're going to go with middle path rather than bottom path. Longer range and barbed darts. Hope you got all your Christmas presents wrapped up for your family and friends you're planning on sending a Christmas present to, and if you've not done so already, then what on earth is going on? Time is very short as of the time of this recording when it comes to 2023 Christmas. On round 19 we can place down our first super monkey of the video. Placing you right here. Going to be placing one over here, and then later on we'll be placing one over here as well. This is going to be our Sun Avatar, this is going to be our Tech Terror, and this one's going to be our Dark Champion. Round 24 we have a camo problem. Guess what? Camo problem has been resolved. Right, round 28 we have a lead problem, but guess what? Thanks to the fact we've got heat tipped darts, the lead balloons will not be staying lead for very long. In fact, they were instantaneously vaporized upon the range of the super monkey as the eyes and ears of the submarine itself, and hopefully soon we will no longer need to use the unsubmerged status of the submarine, although we should get ourselves a second super monkey for our endeavors in this video. When it comes to our quest to get 2 Megapops on every single map before the year 2023 ends, I do not fancy one of them being a base sub or a plutonium reactor or anything like that, simply because of the factor that this thing kind of lacks in popping power in general, and just a lack of maps to be able to effectively use it on. I don't fancy that kind of torture for this side of the year, thank you very much. I've already done that sort of thing, sorry, with the total transformation 2 Megapops and a pat 2 Megapops. Another set of lead problems, another set of issues that can be resolved with a slightly heated variant of darts on this game. Super monkeys cannot possess them. You think that because they fire super duper fast, but the friction within the throw generates some kind of heat that will enable some kind of pierce within the leads themselves, but no, metal has its own ways of being able to tell to you that you're going to need something else rather than just a theoretical assumption that because of how fast they travel, they somehow generate some kind of heat within the air around it, along with the super monkey itself, giving it temperature. But no, these are not for super, not until you actually get some upgrades, that is. Laser Blast and Plasma Blast. Now we no longer need to acquire the Monkey Sub that is stuck before World War 1. I prefer more range over the ability to see camos by default because the epic range path of the Super Monkey also enables it to have more pierce. And sometimes pierce is damage. Not just the initial damage itself, but how many balloons can your projectile go through? Because if you've only got 1 pierce and 50 damage, yes, that is very good against single targets like Moabs. But unfortunately when it comes to the masses, it's not all that good, because you're popping one thing at a time. And that's not good whatsoever. We need something with a lot of pierce. And this, well, this path can provide that extra pierce which we desperately need. Okay, Plasma Blast on this one. Like I said earlier, we're going to go with Sun Avatar here, Tech Terror here, and Dark Champion over here. Although we can move the Dark Champion about if we so choose to. Robot Monkey is here with a second arm in order to boot. I was thinking about calling this the Axis of Capes, but then I was like, the robotic path of the Super Monkey doesn't wear a cape. And past Sun Avatar, this no longer wears a cape. Only the Batman form can we get the cape on the Super Monkey. Also with the Dark Champion, because Dark Champion by default can pop leads, we don't need to worry about the fact that if we go with the Dark Champion, that it won't be able to pop the DT if we don't have the top path installed. Speaking of Batman, we've now got him. Now it's just to pursue the Sun Avatar, then our Adore sacrifice benefits can begin. Although, there's a bit of a problem. We're not using Adora. Camo leads, decamified by the submarine, destroyed by our 2 plasma-based supers here. Guess what? BFB? With its lovely elf hat, I honestly do think that the elf hats and the Santa hats should be reversed. So, the Moabs are wearing the Santa hats, and the elves are wearing the, the balloons are wearing the elf hats, because when it comes to Christmas hierarchy, elves are way below Santa Claus. So, why not are the bigger balloons wearing the inferior hats? No discrimination against elves or Santas out there, but I'm just trying to make a point across. Like, why is that the case? Ninja Kiwi, I have an external crisis, sorry, an internal crisis going on. What's going on here? I'm just being hyperbolical, and you know it. People who have watched my channel for a while know that I make a lot of stuff up while I'm a fly that is a little bit hyperbolical. Stuff that can sometimes be a little bit too extreme to sound true. But guess what? We are here for the journey and not just the start and the end of the destination of this video. It's all about the journey. So what do you all think of the 100 million plus Balloonarius boss event that went on in middle of the road? I'm speaking of this as if in the future when the event is no longer live. But right now, at the time of this recording, the middle of the road Balloonarius boss event is active, and by gosh, it is a tanky bit. We can differ between the rainbows and the camo regrow white simply because of the fact that we cannot pop camos with this particular cross path, but I don't care. I'm doing it for the extra pierce and range and not for the knockback and camo detection innately. Who needs camo detection when you got a tower in place that says, what is a camo balloon? Regrow camo ceramics, soon no longer camo, and then no balloon whatsoever, just like that. Round 76 was a bit uneventful. They did not even make it up to this point in the map here because of all the firepower we've got down here. It's not like some submarine is going to add any difference to the fray. Actually, that time the ceramics got further, simply because of the factor that there was more of them. The wonders of round 78. But at least it's not as infamous as round 79 at times because of all the regrows that spawn. Did you know that regrow rainbows are sometimes the worst threat within a game? Not the bad that spawns around 100, but sometimes the threats that lay in wait between round 6 to 100, not just round 100 itself. Speaking of round 79, here it is, but I think we've got enough pierce in order to deal with all of this. Let's put the Sun Avatar on last, so that it's always aiming towards the regrow rainbows here, so I don't have to worry about regrow potentials. Don't like regrows. Don't like them one bit. I'm gonna have an existential crisis again about regrows. Sometimes you just died too many times to a regrow within this scenario. Also, I'm saving up for Dark Champion before Tech Tower because we really need that guaranteed DDT poppage. DNG down, now just the rest of these. These made it further than the round 76 regrow cameras. Like, it'd be a bit of a waste of time just to show that round, just to see, like, the potential, because there was just less ceramics. And those particular ones there on the previous round were stored in much tougher balloons to try and do with. Also, we're unlocked because I don't try and fancy getting a super to the point of trying to get it on a map that A, doesn't have any water, and B, is too difficult for this little sub to try and handle it, because remember, we've got to get Submerge Support by round 24 and Heat Tip Dust by round 28. I did accidentally unsubmerge the submarine, but at least at this point, a certain mustache man was no longer around to annoy everyone. When I was in secondary school, or high school as other countries would call it, like between ages of 12 to 17/18, I used to find history extremely boring, but nowadays I find it an extremely fascinating topic to cover across, because history defines the borders of every country that the world currently has nowadays. Like, if you think about it, Europe, Asia, North America, Central America, South America, Africa, Oceania, Antarctica even. Every single border that is defined on the world map is defined by the history that has gone on. Like, there was a time when continental Europe was only a few countries, which was Great Britain, France, the German Empire, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, Spain, Italy, and like there's Romania as well, and the Russian Empire. But it's like, if you think about Europe nowadays, it's much more fragmented when it comes to like the land masses and the borders that define it. Like, there's so many countries in Europe now that comparison to what it was, and that's just simply down to like different ethnic group differences and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to like EU and NATO, there are certain things that unite people together with a common cause. Won't say why in this video, but like, if you look throughout history, history is 99.9% ugly. There's no such thing as a world in which has been completely freed of any given time of tyranny, of a lust for power, of controlling people, of controlling people's very emotions and stuff like that. I'm not talking about like mind control or psychic and all that sort of stuff. I'm just talking about like how people perceive things. In certain parts of the world, you have to be incredibly careful about what you say because of the fact that people are always watching you. And I find that just to be an incredibly intrusive, scary thing. But unfortunately for some totalitarian regimes out there, unfortunately that is just the reality of what you need to do to survive. Either A, don't say anything, or B, just be in complete allegiance with the leaders of the particular country in which you are in. And that's just incredibly scary, not having your own free will, not having your own freedom of speech. Like, freedom of speech is something that people use vehemently to defend very bad things that have gone on with people. Like, people say that a particular president of the United States, he was every right to say what he said on Twitter when he was around on Twitter at the time because of freedom of speech. But if you have a certain following and you have a certain kind of cult-based popularity around you, what you say can be incredibly, what's a word? But it can have a ripple effect on what people think and what people do within their day-to-day life. If you say one thing, there's going to be a group of people that, no matter what you do, will always blindly follow you, regardless of what you think. So when you have enough kind of popularity and enough agreements, it boils down to personal perception at the end of the day of that particular person, not the particular person's actions. And once they have like a particular belief in which you also share a belief in, you then become fixated on that person because you find their beliefs on a particular scenario something in which you completely trust and agree with, because you also share similar ideologies and all that kind of jazz. And for me, it's always down to, it's really difficult to say this, but it's down to actions and thoughts first, person second. Like, obviously with family, it's really difficult to try and separate their actions away from them being relayed towards you, because depending on the families and all that kind of jazz, like sometimes you come up in a family scenario where you're not particularly close with your family members, but you still in some ways care about them because you've lived for many years with that person. They once or twice may have helped you out in a really difficult scenario in which you really needed their help in, like let's say with some homework or something else which is incredibly serious throughout life. Like, you're always going to have some kind of bond with that person, even if you don't particularly get along with them. Some cases it's down to convenience, but others it is down to necessity. And with family, it can be either or depending on what kind of situation you are in. But it also ties back to the whereabouts in the world do you live in and stuff like that. Because there are some cases where you don't have a means of being able to say what it is on your mind. Oh, we removed the DDTs there. That's lovely. So, just a food for thought scenario here. What if you live in a part of the world which is much more violent and much more prone to war, and you just read it on the headlines of your front news page on, let's say, the newspaper that you're always reading, or the website that you always refer to for news, and just be like, well, that's not affecting me because I don't live in that part of the world. Don't you think that's a little bit of a selfish perception for those who unfortunately do suffer because of those circumstances? So anyway, sorry I went off on a bit of a tangent there, but this was kind of a relaxing scenario in order to go off on a tangent with. So, history does define borders, and whatever happens throughout the world, there's always going to be some shade of evil, regardless of how peaceful that part of the world is. Like, what is underneath that bit of soil that could potentially stain that country's reputation for forever? Like, from where I am in the United Kingdom, I have a mixed emotion when it comes to, like, the royal family and that sort of stuff, because the foundations of it was brought up by a huge amount of evil. But nowadays, you can discern between... Sorry, you can split apart between an empire and royalty are not that different. But nowadays, it can be either or. It could be that an empire still rules a country because of its royal monarchy and stuff like that. But in other countries like the UK nowadays, the royal part doesn't control the country. It's more like the royal family is a part of the country, but doesn't make the decisions involving the country as much as they were able to back in the early 1900s and all that jazz. But there are still, like, modern day empires out there, possibly, and that's another can of worms in its own right. But thank you so much for watching. This has been 2 Megapops with Super Monkeys using the Sun Avatar, the Tech Terror, and the Dark Champion. Definitely think I made the right decision by going Dark Champion before the Tech Terror, even though the Tech Terror would have been perfectly fine with its abilities against the deities, but because of the time and all that jazz, I prefer a more consistent way of popping DDTs, and that is through the Dark Champion that we managed to get before the very end of round 89, in preparation for round 90. So yeah, thick Blunarius this week. Make sure to grab it before it ends, because this is honestly a really fun scenario. Like 300% HP. I'm glad it doesn't stack with Moab health, because I think it used to be the case where boss health and Moab health stack with the boss itself, because it can be defined as a Moab, but just a different form of a Moab. But thank you all so much for watching, everybody. I've even heard, like, just going back to the boss challenges, I've heard that, where is this? Bloons. I've heard that phase and vortex are possible to do on balloons, which is absolutely bizarre. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves, everybody.